Hi, everybody. Welcome back to I'm Your Aid Astrology. I have a special edition of a new series that I'll be rolling out. A lot of the energies I'll be talking about today kind of inspired this for me. But my normal weekly updates consist of how the stars affect everyone from a personal level and how to pull the best resources out of the planetary alignments, paired with shamanic anecdotes and how to remedy, some of the things that are going on in our lives. And it's also meant to be very educational. And I expect that to continue, but I wanted a secondary outlet to show a different form of astrology. And what I'm finding is sometimes people have a hard time uh, separating um, themselves in the astrology. Sometimes you're too close to something and you can't see it clearly, or have rose-colored glasses. So I wanted to provide a secondary platform to show how the astrology shows up more in a mundane way, from a worldly perspective. That way, you get an alternative look of how it's affecting the world and yourself in your personal life. And sometimes that allows people to see things from a 40,000-foot view. So it is going to be called Uncut Astrology. This is technically my premiere of it. So you'll also get a little different version of myself. I have a progressed sun in Gemini in the eighth house. So I have a very granular approach, deep diving, almost a very journalistic way, which is how I typically use astrology in my personal life. But I also, on a more mundane level, can make some correlations. So I'm not sure how often I'll be doing these videos, if they will be weekly updates as in parallel with my other ones. Um, but there's some things going on that I feel um, could use some extra perspective. There is a disclaimer to this broadcast. This is not a political channel. I don't believe in the purest form of politics, at least what we're led to believe they are. I feel they are an illusion of choice and democracy in this country. So I do not vote. I do not claim a party. So I um, want that disclaimer to be understood, as I'm not coming from this from any certain angle or agenda. Um, One of my greatest teachers in my life, Ashley Stamatinos, um, her best advice to me is always stay in the question. And when you stay in the question, you further empower yourself and not disempower yourself. So not only have I adapted that throughout my life, in the work I've done, um, in my healing path, and just the world at large, I've taken that to heart, and I feel like I've introduced myself to a lot more possibilities than some of the limiting mindsets that I might have adopted earlier in life. So take that for what you will. Like I mentioned, something did kind of spark me to do this, and um, I would say it was this current Mars square to Uranus um, that is currently taking place. It came into uh, Mars and Saturn became conjunct on the 31st. So I have the chart up for the 31st. So I want to bring you into some of the kind of news stream to show you what this kind of looks like. And I've explained this in my other videos, but Mars is very Aryan. It's action, it's impulsiveness, it's ego without consciousness, it's anger. Mars wants to go where it wants to go when it wants to do it, and it has a big problem with Saturn. It's a conflicting energy. Saturn is restrictions, delays. Since we're talking about um, where it's currently placed, and that's in Capricorn. So Capricorn is um, government, authority, large businesses. So Mars was met with Saturn in a hard stop, and the result of that is kind of anger and result of restriction. It's conflict with authority. If you're looking at this natally, people that have this conjunction have been dominated by the father or authority, or can have dominant personas. The square to Uranus is unexpected. It's the combination of the two is outbursts of anger, rage, disruption, and it's being triggered by the Mars and Saturn activity. A bigger part of this is Mars moving into Aquarius, and Mars and Aquarius people are very cavalier. They fight for their beliefs. It's Aquarian, so you're talking about large groups of people. So the combination of this is also, political arguments and social unrest, which we haven't seen on a grander scale than I thought, or at least it's not being shown in the media. You're starting to see a little more activity. It is Capricorn, so I think these will affect larger cities first. And in short, with Mars Saturn conjunction in Aquarius and moving from Capricorn, it's kind of extreme overreach from government. So I thought it'd be helpful to give you some examples of that and go through some articles to show you how this affects how the astrology is talking to us on a mundane level. And we're all going through this inside. In my last video, I mentioned this paired with the full moon is, balance and chaos. But this also is a restructuring, repurposing, or evil, or even a culmination of relationships. Again, I'm not going to get into the personal stuff, but I want to show you how this shows up in the world and kind of what we're experiencing. I feel that if you want to be change in the world, you change who you are inside. And this might help some people on a personal level too, is showing you what the internal conflict is with yourself inside. Where are you getting in your own way? What structures and constructs and solutions have you created in your life as a defense mechanism, but it's further restricting you from your dreams, wishes, and desires? So the first article is a mainstream article. Allegedly, a man was handcuffed in front of his daughter in a park for violating social distancing. So, as far as I'm concerned, the way I understand the constitutional laws is we still have constitutional rights. Unless martial law has been written into play or signed in by the president, I don't understand how anyone could be convicted of a crime. If anything, social distancing at this point in juncture should be a suggestion, not a violation of any laws, because I haven't read any of this come out to pass through Congress. And I think a part of this is these overbearing structures are kind of testing to see what they can get away with and what we're willing to endure as a society. The DOJ wants to suspend constitutional rights during coronavirus emergency. So, truthfully, when this virus came out in late December, early January, I think January it was actually announced, but Mars is actually in square with Neptune and Pisces. So, Pisces can rule what's hidden, hospitals, police stations, morgues. And Neptune can be associated with disease and pandemic. So let's pretend that this is a super flu. However, in the stay-at-home order, or I'll call it house arrest, that's fine. What gets me questioning things is all of the other agendas that are taking place. If it was is this a virus and everyone stay home, well, why isn't it equal? Why are the mom and pop stores shut down and you can still walk into a Subway? You still go to McDonald's. Now, if you're going to have laws or suggestions in order, there should not be any businesses exempt from it. You can't bake your cake, eat it too. We're in a commerce-based society. And I'm talking about America. You can't shut down the world in order for to survive. I was going into the grocery store the other day. In the grocery store,
police are apparently arresting a dad for throwing a ball to his daughter.
It was a former city council member who could not believe what he was recording.
That's interesting. The audio started playing without me clicking anything. So I won't name the grocery store. It's a mega chain, and people are panic buying, panic shopping, and you could go in there and you're arm's length from people getting their groceries. But yet Major League Baseball is shut down, and I don't see a difference crowd-wise between walking into a mega store and going to the hot dog stand at your local baseball game. I went to Trader Joe's the other day, and they had lines out in front, and this is public news, and you have to stand 6 feet away from each person, and you can't enter the store without a store operator giving you the okay to come in. So that store has a regulation, but yet you can go to a mega store with more people, more closer proximity, and a different jurisdiction. Also, while this is going on, we have 5G being launched and set up everywhere in businesses and schools, on the streets, both the United States and Europe. There's plenty of information out there. I'm not going to get into all of those articles because there's actually too many for me to fit into this call. While we're all at home and we cannot peacefully protest, mind you, they are testing self-driving cars and trucks. Okay, so again, we're also seeing the dismantling of the lower and middle class. To me, the truckers of the United States are kind of the backbone of this country. Without logistics services, we couldn't really survive, and we're seeing that on a grassroots level. So is AI going to be dictating everything in our society? I'll get back to this. So the DOJ wants to suspend constitutional rights, but they're not saying they are suspended yet. We're not in martial law. So how can anyone be handcuffed or arrested for violating social distancing? How about what happened to just getting a warning? I go on a daily walk because there's really nothing else to fucking do. And they have chained and white taped the swing sets, getting us used to control. Next, San Diego citizen faces $1,000 coronavirus fine. It's called a coronavirus fine, okay, Jail time for watching the sunset at the beaches. So let's say you're still in line with the social distancing, which I believe the last I heard is you cannot congregate in groups of 50 or more, and you have to stay at least 6 feet apart. Let's say you're 15 feet apart of someone and you're just getting out of the house for a little bit and enjoy the sunset, because trying to find a little bit of joy of life while you can in this society. And you get a $1,000 fine for being in public. Okay, so if we're not in martial law, then technically we shouldn't have a curfew. If the beaches are closed across the country, then you still have the right to go to those public service lands. I received this article from a good friend and mentor of mine. So Glenwood Springs public health order mandates citizens wear face masks or receive up to 1 year in jail. 1 year in jail. Now, I haven't seen the 10 commandments of the coronavirus. Are they just making these things up as we go? Because I sure as hell hasn't seen an official announcement from the government of what a coronavirus violation statute it even is at this time. This isn't in America, but apparently since the economies are collapsing across the world, to sum this up, this nice little story is a father and son lost the ability to pay for groceries to feed their family. They are in a rural area of Canada. I believe both have their hunting license, and they violated the stay-at-home order in order to feed their families, and they were shot dead. So, okay, it's fine that we're self-quarantined and we can't get out to feed ourselves, though we have many of us lost our jobs. My fiance lost her job a month ago, and she still can't get through to unemployment. It's a busy signal every time you call. She filed in one state because we were technically living here a month before it happened, and it's a remote position out of another state. So they actually rejected her unemployment benefits in this state, even though she was technically working out of this state, and her paychecks were going to this address. Now she filed for the other state, and we're going on 5 weeks now, and not a penny has gone into her pocket. So that's fine. If you're going to mandate a self-quarantine, then I would say that the United States military, or FEMA, should be going door to door, not trying to vaccinate you, but handing out food. By the way, suicide rate is up about 23% in Washington state. That's probably killing more people than the supposed virus is. You know, I was talking to someone the other day. If Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington were around today, they would be dumbfounded. Again, it's not just the virus, it's the constitutional rights that we are losing on a daily basis. People are suffering, not the rich. All right, I need a break from this. The second transit I wanted to talk about here is Mercury conjunct Neptune. So for those of you astrology lovers, if you have this natally, this means deception, undermining, lying, fake news, propaganda. So things are being spun in one way, and on one hand, and something else is actually happening. So the stimulus bill, no one really understands to its complexity. Everyone's happy that, oh, everyone's getting $1,200. That's your money that you're paying yourself. And the way it works is, I believe $18,000 is borrowed against every citizen who has filed their taxes. $16,800 goes to bailing out big business, and $1,200 goes in your pocket. In a nutshell, how that works. So fine, there's been a lot of really good people that have gone through the itemized bill. So one of which is $25 million in federal relief going to the Kennedy Center, which is supposed to be to pay for people's salaries and keeping the jobs and whatever it's from maintenance, cleaners, admins, customer service individuals. That's supposed to be relief going to that business to keep them afloat, essential or not. 60% of this is being furloughed, which means you get laid off and maybe a 2-week settlement if you're lucky. And then with the disclaimer of once things become better and business picks up, you're allowed to be hired back. Why not 100% of this money go to this organization to keep it up and running and furlough nobody? My fiance got laid off, no 2-week settlement. It was a 48-hour notice, and that was it. More fake news. CBS News caught using Italian footage to describe New York City hospital conditions. So news broke and CBS had to admit to this because they weren't going to be transparently forthright. And taking the mass hysteria in Italy and presenting it as the same mass hysteria in New York. Just to stir some more fear porn. I'll go to my personal page. Now, I am not saying that I believe everything that David Icke says, but he released a live coverage. I think at London and Real was the mainstream affiliate conducting the interview. And they held a live stream, I think it was 2 days ago. And it was reported that it was the second attended live stream in YouTube history. And they are presenting an alternative view of the virus and 5G. What was the end result of that? They shut down the YouTube live stream and the website. And from what I understand, this was also placed on Vimeo, and that was also shut down. Okay, so getting back to our rights. Again, unless I haven't been not informed, we still have constitutional rights in this country of freedom of speech. And on an extreme level, and I'm not, let's pretend I'm a crazy racist person. According to laws of free speech, I'm still allowed to speak on whatever I want to speak on. And I'm not saying I am. That's an extreme example. And all this does, it makes this whole situation look even more curious. If these people in power had nothing at all to hide, Why would they go to such great lengths and extremes to shut people up? Again, let's pretend for a moment that everything the mainstream media is presenting to us is true, even though we've caught them lying. It's all the other agendas being rolled out while we're at home. Very convenient that 5G is going out everywhere, and we're seeing the complete deconstruction of the middle and lower class, and we can't peacefully protest. I think we're being pressed to see how much we're willing to take. Where's the line in the sand? When do we say, this isn't right? And I'm not calling for a revolution. I'm calling to object to the status quo, towing the line. Another thing too, they talk a lot about the fears and the daily death count of this virus, but there's not anyone coming out besides saying stay away from people and wash your hands, being allowed to, from the mainstream, any holistic approaches to taking care of this virus, upping your vitamin C dosage, colloidal silver, turmeric, zinc, sunlight. I believe if this is a virus, it could be, it cannot survive 59 degrees or more, but yet we can't go outside in the sun. No solutions are being presented to us. We have no timetable of when we could go back to a normal life, which we won't. Social distancing is here to stay. Saturn is going to be in Aquarius for 3 years. Now, it probably won't be to this extreme. Society won't be able to last under these current constructs. It could barely hang on for the 30 days it's already been. All I'm saying is stay in the question. No one really knows, truthfully, what the hell is going on in its exact entirety. But talking to the common people, we could all agree on one thing. Something's a little off. Something's just not right. I feel as far as the virus is concerned, I think after the middle of April, we'll start seeing this kind of ease up a bit. As far as the squeeze, I expect this to continue. I'll leave you with this. I'm not sure, I might misquote this, but one of my mentors and teachers, Robert Phoenix, says, use your mind to discern what's real and use your heart to know what's possible. And find out personally in your life where you're willing to draw the line. Glorified house arrest, being arrested in public for using public locations is one thing. Not allowed to go grocery shopping if you have a mask is another thing. How would you react if you were pulled out of your house and being forced a vaccination? There's a lot of things going on in the astrology, and I'm not going to open this bag of worms, and I'm not the only astrologer that has discussed this. We're talking about Uranus and Taurus, Saturn and Pluto. We're talking about the channels of history. When have these transits and similarity occurred? We're also talking about Jupiter and Pluto. Talking about 2008 financial crisis, housing crisis. Uranus and Taurus, we're talking about the Great Depression. We're talking about the rise of Hitler. Now, I'm not saying it's all going to show up in the exact same way. It most likely won't. The energy, nonetheless, is a similar frequency. I often wonder if the Fourth Reich was around today or had the technology we have today back then, would they have a boots to the ground war, or would they trick everyone to knowingly walk into concentration camps? Just saying. And where are you restricting yourself inside? Where are you self-sabotaging yourself? Like I've been talking about for weeks, the nodes are shifting. There's going to be a split in society. I feel like with Cancer and Capricorn, the end degrees, I think a result of all this is a split of society. There's going to be a large number of people moving away from large cities, Capricorn, and moving into more rural areas, Cancer. Where can you become more self-sufficient in your life? The end result, this is this liberation, forcing us to be more powerful than we realize. New moon in Taurus is coming up. Where are your values? In isolation, you have to face yourself. The full moon Libra, when you look in the mirror, Libra is considered the other. You have to look at yourself. When you take away all the luxuries of life, like beer and food and baseball games and mindless television, what are your values? What did you spend? Was $200 a week going in the watering hole? Was that worth it? How well would that money be used right now? What are your personal values? I think in chaos, we could find empowerment and we could find healing and balance. This is a wake-up call. Be the change you want to be in the world. If you want to change anything, change yourself from the inside out. Anyways, thanks for tuning in to Uncut Astrology. I am Justin with I Am Your Aid Astrology. I'm not your coach. I'm not your guru. I'm not your guide. I'm your aid. I'm your angel in disguise. I help you, empower you. Until next week, take care.